The sunlight falls on the pink curtains, and through the half-open curtains, a warm ray of light spills onto me. In the corner of the bedroom, my little treasure lies in a small cradle, the scent of baby milk wafting through the air. Every time he falls asleep, I quietly watch him, my heart filled with endless love. But every time it's feeding time, I feel a deep sense of helplessness and anxiety. I am healthy and my milk supply is abundant, even surprisingly so. But every time I try to feed the baby, he seems to dislike my milk. His little mouth tightly bites my nipple, but he refuses to suck, only crying and fussing. Thus, every time I feed the baby becomes a difficult battle of wits, and I am always the defeated side. So, when I see other mothers successfully breastfeeding their babies, my heart feels like it's being cut by a knife. Why? Why is my child so picky, refusing even his mother's sweet milk? I keep questioning myself. Did I do something wrong, or is there something wrong with my body? Every time the night is quiet, lying next to the baby, listening to his even breathing, my tears flow uncontrollably. I worry about the baby, fearing that his refusal of breast milk will affect his health. But the reality is, my husband is often away from home, and as a woman, I feel powerless in this regard. When I feel engorged, I have used a breast pump to relieve the pain, but every time I see that clear milk being poured away, my heart aches. Milk is the best gift I can give my baby. How can I waste it like this? Days go by and my journey of breastfeeding the baby seems to become increasingly difficult. However, as a mother, I will do everything I can for things that are beneficial to the baby's health. Just when I was tormented by the troubles of breastfeeding, unable to eat or sleep, the phone rang. It was my best friend, Ching Ching, calling. Her voice was filled with concern and excitement. Rui, I heard you're having trouble breastfeeding. I know a lactation consultant who is really professional. He has helped many mothers like you solve their problems. Do you want to give it a try? Although I hesitated a bit, thinking of the baby, I decided to follow my friend's advice. Okay, can you help me make an appointment? When is convenient? Tomorrow, I'll bring him directly to your house, Ching Ching said confidently. The next day, just after giving the baby a bath, Ching Ching arrived on time with the lactation consultant. On the third day, I eagerly opened the door, only to see a tall man standing at the door, with a smiling Ching Ching beside him. Rui, this is the lactation consultant I told you about, Lei Ning, Ching Ching introduced. I looked at him a bit awkwardly. He had deep-set eyes, was tall and handsome, with a good demeanor, looking like a reliable man. He nodded gently and smiled slightly. Hello, Miss Rui. I heard from Ching Ching that you're having some trouble. I will do my best to help you. I hesitated for a moment, but considering my situation, I decided to give it a try. Lei Ning was very calm. He first had me sit down and then began to ask about my physical condition and the breastfeeding process. His professional inquiries made me lower my guard a bit and also brought me a glimmer of hope. Ching Ching cheered me on from the side, constantly telling me that Lei Ning's skills were really good. Lei Ning took out a sterile towel and massage oil. His movements were skilled and detail-oriented, which made me relax my guard a little. Rui, you need to relax. I know this is your first time meeting a male lactation consultant, but I assure you that my professionalism and ethics are beyond question, Lei Ning said calmly. I nodded, trying to tell myself to relax. Lei Ning first gently massaged my shoulders and back. The massage was very comfortable, and gradually I felt the tension in my body easing. Then he warmed the massage oil in his hands and began to apply slight pressure on my breasts. His technique wasn't heavy, but every time his fingers glided over, I felt an indescribable stimulation. He focused on his work, his expression serious and attentive. Throughout the process, I tried to divert my attention elsewhere, but I found my heart racing, and my cheeks involuntarily flushed. Qingqing saw my expression and a mischievous smile appeared on her lips. "Oh, Ri, look at you, do you feel a bit fresh?" she teased. I wanted to retort but didn't know how to start, so I just shot her a glare. Soon, Lei Ning finished the massage. He prepared a small basin and gently squeezed out some milk to check its condition. Throughout the process, he maintained professionalism and distance, not doing anything that made me uncomfortable. "The lactation session has ended, Ri. You need to have such massages regularly to help your milk ducts stay clear and reduce milk blockage," Lei Ning reminded. I nodded, thanking him for his help, while feeling a bit of respect for him in my heart. However, I decided not to seek male lactation consultants in the future. This experience was just too stirring. After the lactation session, I felt much more relaxed, and most importantly, the baby no longer cried when feeding. It seemed he also sensed my ease and comfort. However, the good times didn't last long. Just a few days later, I felt that engorgement again, each time feeling like it was about to burst, making it almost unbearable. Especially when the baby cried, I really felt helpless. Thinking of Lei Ning's help last time, I hesitated for a moment, and then decided to seek his help again. I called Qingqing only to find out that she was on a business trip out of town. I felt a bit disappointed. After all, I still felt a bit shy about having a male lactation consultant come alone. Ri, don't worry, Lei Ning is very professional. He has helped many mothers and received great feedback. Just tell him the time, and he will arrive on time, Qingqing comforted me on the phone. I felt nervous, but thinking of the baby and my own situation, I eventually agreed. At the agreed time, Lei Ning arrived as promised. I opened the door with some nervousness, and he smiled and nodded, holding his professional toolkit. This time, without Qingqing's presence, the air was filled with a sense of tranquility. "Miss Ri, I heard from Qingqing that you encountered difficulties again, and I hope I can help," Lei Ning said calmly. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady despite trembling. "Thank you, Lei Ning." He first prepared a comfortable chair for me, then took out a warm towel and massage oil. I tried to relax, but I was still a bit tense. "Please relax, Miss Ri," Lei Ning said softly. "I will ensure that this lactation process is as comfortable and effective as the last time." I gently nodded, and then he began to work. His hands gently circled my back and shoulders, gradually shifting my attention to his massage. Then, he gently applied massage oil and began to apply slight pressure on my breasts. Every movement of his was so skillful, proficient, and gentle. I tried to focus my attention elsewhere, but I felt my heart racing. His fingers seemed to carry magic, each glide evoking a feeling that was both familiar and strange. I tried to tell myself that this was just because of his professional skills, but I knew my thoughts had drifted elsewhere. I imagined if he were not a lactation consultant, if we were in another setting, if we were friends or even lovers. My thoughts began to soar, light as feathers, drifting towards the unknown sky. Before I knew it, his movements stopped as he poured the expressed milk into a small basin for inspection. He reminded me that the lactation effect this time was very good. Miss Riri, your physical condition has obviously improved. But I still recommend that you do some self-massage according to my guidance to help the milk ducts flow better. I tried to pull my thoughts back, nodding to show understanding. He tidied up his tools and then gently stood up. Leining gave me some advice on how to massage myself to avoid the recurrence of engorgement. I expressed my gratitude to him. He smiled and nodded, then left. That night, I felt particularly calm, watching the baby sleep soundly, my heart filled with gratitude. Sometimes, help may come from an unexpected place. I sat on the sofa, holding my phone, glancing at the WeChat message list from time to time, waiting for a certain name to appear. Just when I was feeling restless, my phone vibrated. It was him, Leining. Miss Riri, how do you feel after the lactation? Has it eased a bit? He asked. I stared at the screen, my heart suddenly racing. I knew I should reply that the lactation effect was very good, but my finger paused on the screen for a moment. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my courage and typed a few words. Very good, actually not just the lactation effect. I feel very comfortable when I am with you. Then I sent it. My heart was racing. I both anticipated and feared his reply, worried that what I just said was too presumptuous. It felt like an eternity, but it was only a minute or two. He replied, Miss Riri, I am glad you are satisfied with my service. As a professional lactation consultant, I hope every client can receive the best help. If you have any other needs or questions, please feel free to let me know. I stared at his reply, feeling happy yet a bit disappointed. His response was both polite and evasive. I knew this was his professionalism and boundaries, which I could not break. I sighed softly and replied, Thank you, Leining. Good night. He replied with a smiling emoji, Good night, Miss Riri. I put down my phone, feeling complicated. This feeling seemed to exceed my expectations. I knew I should stay calm, but the restlessness in my heart left me unsure of how to handle it. My husband and I have been married for 5 years, but for most of the time, we live like two parallel lines, each leading our own lives, only occasionally intersecting. I am not the kind of woman who enjoys going out and being wild. Rather, I am more traditional and conservative. Our marriage seems to revolve only around daily trivial matters and the children, and the passion and romance between us seem to have long been lost. The arrival of lactation consultant Leining felt like injecting a fresh splash of color into my mundane life. His hands, his movements, his care made me feel an unprecedented attention and affection. Every time he left, I would lie in bed, the anticipation and excitement in my heart lingering for a long time. I knew this was not just the effect of lactation. It was more about the new experience and touch that Leining brought me. Every time I thought of his touch and words, I felt a heartbeat and excitement I had never experienced before. Although I knew this feeling might be inappropriate, I could not deny that he made me experience that feeling of being cherished and cared for, something my husband had not given me in a long time. I longed to see him again, to experience that feeling once more. But I also knew I could not have any expectations of him. He was just a lactation consultant, and his duty was only to help me with lactation. And I could not develop any unrealistic thoughts about him because of this brief experience. Although I wanted to be rational, My body did not cooperate as I wished. I hesitated for a long time and finally decided to contact Leining again. On the agreed day, it rained heavily. Leining arrived on time, carrying the scent of rain, faint and refreshing. I walked to the door to greet him, and he smiled at me, and in that moment, the excitement in my heart jumped again. Leining entered the house and began to prepare the necessary tools. In the quiet room, there was only the faint light and the sound of raindrops. He inquired about my engorgement situation, and I described it a bit awkwardly. The lactation has begun, and his movements are still skilled and gentle. I try to relax, but my heartbeat is in contrast to the rhythm of lactation, becoming faster and faster. Suddenly, my hand accidentally brushed against the back of his hand, and we both froze for a moment. Leining stopped, trying to avoid my gaze. I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, and shifted my gaze to his face. In that instant, our eyes met as if time had stopped. I felt my cheeks burning, but I didn't back down. Instead, I gently took his hand and placed it on my cheek. He no longer avoided me, just looking deeply into my eyes, filled with a certain profound emotion. It seemed there was a current flowing in the air, and we were getting closer and closer until finally his lips gently landed on my forehead. That kiss was gentle and affectionate, taking away all our tension and hesitation. After that tender kiss, the whole room was filled with romance. Leining looked into my eyes, and there was an unspoken understanding in his gaze. He softly asked, Roy, do you trust me? I nodded, feeling a bit uneasy but more expectant. Leining, I'm a little scared. He smiled, gently placing his hand on my shoulder, comforting me. Relax. This method is very old, very primitive, but also very natural, and can help you lactate better. I tried to calm my emotions as he helped me unbutton my clothes with trembling hands. Leining gently pulled me to sit by the bed, then knelt in front of me, bringing our faces closer. His breathing was steady, in contrast to mine, and I could feel the calm he was trying to convey. When his lips enveloped mine, a feeling I had never experienced surged in my heart. He was gentle and professional, as soft as my baby. He occasionally looked up at me, his eyes filled with concern as if asking, does this feel good? I slightly closed my eyes, immersing myself in this special lactation experience, the only response being my breathing gradually becoming even, and my heartbeat stabilizing. Time seemed to stand still. Finally, when Leining felt the milk flowing smoothly, he gently withdrew from my side. We both felt a bit awkward, but our hearts were also filled with an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. Leining stood up, reached out to help me adjust my clothes, and softly said, although this lactation method is special, I hope you understand that I just want to help you. I looked at him, my feelings complex and hard to express. I softly said, thank you, Leining. I will always remember today's experience. Since that special lactation experience, the relationship between Leining and me was no longer just that of teacher and client. Every time lactation ended, we would always find some reason to chat a little longer. We talked about life, shared our thoughts. Sometimes he would share his life experiences, interesting client stories, or some insights from his lactation work, while I would tell him about my family, my worries, and my reflections on real life. Our conversations were not always about lactation. In fact, lactation was just a beginning. More often, we were two friends with shared experiences, understanding and caring for each other. One time I bought fresh strawberries at the market, and on a whim, I sent Lei Ning a message inviting him to come and taste them. To my surprise, he agreed quickly. That afternoon, I made strawberry jam and shared it with him. Sitting on the balcony, watching the bustling street, we talked about life and dreams for the future. When I found it hard to sleep and the feeling of fullness returned, I would message him. He would always respond in time, giving me advice or simply comforting me. Sometimes he would even recommend some music for me to listen to, helping me relax. Gradually, I found myself looking forward to his messages, looking forward to his arrival. Of course, it wasn't because of the fullness, but because I wanted to spend time with him. Every interaction with him brought me a sense of peace, as if in this busy life, there was a harbor that belonged solely to him and me. But deep down, I knew that he and I were just friends. After all, I was married, I had children, I had my family. Lei Ning might just be a passerby in my life. However, every interaction made me cherish this friendship even more. When the child was 1 year old, my husband had to move our family away from that city due to work. As the calendar pages turned, our lives gradually stabilized in the new city. My husband's work progressed smoothly, while I began to get busy with taking care of the child and household chores. A new environment, new neighbors, new daily life. Everything was so fresh and full of challenges. Whenever the child laughed in the park or slept soundly at night, I would think of the past. Those days spent with the lactation consultant, those bittersweet moments. Sometimes I would open my phone during my leisure time, browse through old chat records, and reminisce about those beautiful moments. Lei Ning would occasionally send me messages, asking about me and the child, or sharing some of his recent experiences. But as time passed, our messages became fewer and fewer, until they eventually fell silent. I knew this outcome was expected, but when that day truly came, I still felt a bit lost. One day, while sorting through old items, I found a music album that Lei Ning had recommended to me. I played it, and that familiar melody echoed in my ears again. What surged in my heart was not just a love for the music, but a nostalgia for those days. I think, no matter what the future holds, I will cherish this experience with Lei Ning. It helped me rediscover myself and understand the pride and beauty of being a woman. This memory is like a beautiful song, forever residing in my heart, becoming the most beautiful part of my life. The child's laughter came from the living room, distracting me. On the phone screen, Lei Ning's message was still there. The unread mark lit up. He said, "I heard the night view of this city is beautiful, and I really want to share it with you, but I respect your choice." I sighed softly and typed a string of text. Lei Ning, that time was a very special period in my life, and I cherish it. But now, I hope to keep that beauty and don't want to touch it again. Meeting again may cause that memory to lose its original brilliance. I wish you a pleasant journey in this city. I sent the message and then set my phone aside. The child was happily playing with toys in the living room, and I couldn't help but walk over, pick him up, and take a deep breath. A new home, a new life, every day with my husband and child is so happy. Then, the phone vibrated. It was Lei Ning's reply. Understood. Rui Roy, take care, and I wish you all the best. Life is always full of various choices. Sometimes, letting go of certain things is the only way to move forward better.